today, first time to Melissa's, is Lindsay-Jean Hard, the book, and her first book, Cooking with Scraps. I think food waste has been a big issue here, especially in the United States, over the last few years, and a lot of things, media and food media, has come to shed light on this. And we have one of the pioneers who has done a cookbook and is going to show you how to cook with scraps. You know, your carrot tops and stuff. Yes, they are completely edible. In fact, it's one of the recipes that we have today. So, our guest, Lindsay-Jean, she is going to go over today's menu prepared by our chefs. Lindsay, take it away.
So we are going to start over here with a pico de gallo. I'm from Michigan, and I like to grow my own tomatoes. And at the end of every season, I have so many green tomatoes left on the vine. This might not happen to you guys here in California, but
We get green tomatoes year-round.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the green tomatoes are featured in this salsa, along with beans and onions and a bunch of other ingredients that you can customize to your liking. Next, we have the elote with a spicy Aquafaba mayonnaise. So if you're not familiar with Aquafaba, that's the liquid that gets drained off from a can of beans. And that can be used in the same way that egg whites can. It really whips up into peaks. So here I turned it into a mayonnaise to use on the form. Next, we have carrot top pesto tartlets. So the carrot tops are turned into a pesto, and this pesto doesn't even have cheese in it, so it's not a true pesto, but it's so flavorful it doesn't even need it. It's one of my favorite recipes in the book. I like it on the tartlets. I like it to spread it on sandwiches or in pasta. And then next, we have a dill pickle brine potato salad. Pickle brine is really just an amped up vinegar. It has garlic and all of these other great herbs in it, so it's super flavorful. And we'll be walking through making that later on as well. Next, we have a cheese tortellini with sausage and broccoli stems. I think broccoli stems are one of the scraps that are becoming more popular. Thankfully, people are realizing how delicious they are, and you can be using them really anywhere that you're using broccoli. Next, we have egg salad sandwiches, and those have celery hearts and leaves in them. So I like this because it gives you all of that great celery flavor without as much of the crunch. So you're making use of those tiny little stalks in the middle and all of the leaves. And then finally, probably the craziest recipe in the cookbook is the banana peel cake, which does not have any banana in it. It is really just banana peel. Wow.
All right, so pioneering this category, because I know this has been an issue. Food waste has been an issue in the United States forever. It didn't really come to light in the last few years. Some of the chefs out there are saying, you know, I'm using the tops of this and that and whatnot. And I think the chefs have been really great communicative pieces to get people to be inspired, to know that it was just beyond that, you know, only a part of the fruit or vegetable is edible, but in many cases, all of it's edible. So here, Lindsay-Jean Hard will now talk about this book, and she's not going to do 2 but 3 demos today. Lindsay-Jean, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. It's great to be here. I want to start out by talking a little bit about food waste because it is a really serious problem in our country. 40% of food is currently going uneaten, which is just a staggering number to me. And it's happening at all levels of the food chain. There's produce that's not getting harvested from fields because the supermarkets think that it's too ugly to sell. There's waste in supermarkets. There's waste at restaurants from too much food on plates. And I think I wanted to think that it was more on that side, that it was more the restaurants and the supermarkets and whatnot that were to blame. But going to SaveTheFood.com, which is a great resource to check out from the Natural Resources Defense Council, I learned that it's us, it's the consumers that are really to blame for the vast majority of that. And you know, it's disheartening to think about, but it's also encouraging because it means that then we can make a difference. So some of you might remember there used to be a food pyramid. It's it's now the plate, and it's different. But if you think back to when it was a pyramid, and it was the bottom of what you're supposed to be eating the most of, and the least at the top, think of that flipped. So the EPA has come up with a food recovery hierarchy, and so it's what we should be doing to cut down on this food waste. And so we want to be doing more of what's at the top and less of what's at the bottom. So at the very top is source reduction. So right off the bat, we want to reduce the amount of food that is being wasted, and just cut down on that surplus food creation. Next down is that we want to be feeding people with it. The EPA is talking about feeding hungry people, but it's also feeding ourselves, like cooking with scraps, which we'll be talking more about. The next down from there is feeding animals. So using that instead of like the corn and soy that we're growing, just to feed animals. The next level down is industrial uses. So that's using food scraps to recover for like energy and fuel. And then next down is composting. You know, even if we're doing all of those things about that, there's still going to be things that we need to put food scraps to use for it, and we can compost that. And then finally, at the very bottom is the landfill. That is the absolute last place that we want to be sending our food waste. There are chefs that are doing great things with this and highlighting it. I think chefs in general have probably been doing a better job of it than many of us are, because again, they know that it impacts their restaurant's bottom line. And it's wonderful that there are so many chefs right now that are highlighting cooking with scraps. But I also want to emphasize that you definitely don't have to be a chef to be cooking with scraps. I don't have a culinary background at all. For cooking with scraps, it actually started because it was right around when Gabrielle Hamilton's cookbook Prune came out. And it has a chapter called Garbage. And we were having an editorial team discussion, and it was another one of those things where like bells and whistles started going off. And I was like, I have to have that column. Like, hands down, it has to be mine. So I would hunt through those archives of recipes and look for ones that the community members had uploaded that were making smart use of underutilized produce parts and any other edible odds and ends. And then I would share those recipes and write about them, share what made them special. And I learned so much from them in the process that then I wanted to share that with everyone else. And that's really where this book came from. And I really want to highlight that it's meant to be a reference guide. It's organized from A to Z, from apple cores to zucchini stems. So it can be something that you turn to when you have an ingredient that you're not sure what to do with, and get ideas for using it. And I really hope that people play with these recipes and make them their own. Like, these are just starting suggestions that then you can use to jump off of. Because once you start thinking about how much food we're wasting and how many things you could be using in your home kitchen, I feel like it can quickly get overwhelming. And that's the opposite of what I want people to feel like. Hey, so, you know, cooking with scraps is not a new concept. It's one that's been around. Wartime generations would not have needed this reminder to make good use of everything. But, you know, luckily we're circling back around to it, and I think we just all need a mental shift to realize that we should be cooking with them. And maybe a renaming process along the way too, because scraps doesn't sound all that appealing. I think some people hear that and think that this is, you know, punitive, and it's going to be like, well, you're forcing myself to do it, and it's not going to taste that good. But that's just, it's not the case at all.